Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Tzav and Shabbat Hagadol. And the question is, what is so gadol, so great about this Shabbos that we call it Shabbat Hagadol? So the Rebbe explains, based on an introduction, into the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu. We know Moshe Rabbeinu was called Moshe Rabbeinu because he was drawn out from the water by Paro's daughter. And Kabbalah explains that Moshe Rabbeinu comes from the world of Alma Dizgasya, the concealed world. We know we have the revealed world, Alma Dizgalia, and then you have the concealed world. Moshe Rabbeinu comes from Alma Dizgasya, a very high spiritual level. So Rabbi asks, 1 second. Moshe Rabbeinu is coming from Alma Dizgasya, the concealed world. Why? Because he was drawn from the water. Which water was he drawn from? The Nile. The Nile is the Egyptians' idolatry. That's question number one. Question number two is, who is the one that took him out of the water? Basya Bas Parai. Basya, the daughter of Parai, and Parai was the king of Egypt. That means the king of all the idolatry. But nevertheless, we're saying that Moshe Rabbeinu coming from that water is coming from Alma Dizgasya. And the fact is, Moshe Rabbeinu had 10 other names. What name do we specifically remember him? And what's name that we call him by? Moshe Rabbeinu. So the question is a simple question. Why would the idolatry, the source of idolatry, be a source for Moshe Rabbeinu's greatness? So the Rebbe explains, there's a rule in Kabbalah that says like this, that something, the higher something is, when it falls much lower. So in other words, when you see something so low, that means it's coming potentially from a high space. So as long as it's low, it's low. Once it's transformed, then it connects to its original high source. So Rebbe explains like this. When Basya Bas Paroi went to cleanse herself in the water, so it's brought down, it says, she didn't just go physically to cleanse herself in the water. She actually went to cleanse herself from idolatry. And she actually not only cleansed herself from idolatry, she actually nullified the idolatry of the whole Nile. And that's why it's interesting that when Moshe Rabbeinu's sister, Yocheved, put Moshe Rabbeinu, she didn't put him in the Nile. She put him on the side of the Nile. Why? Because she wouldn't put him in idolatry. Once Basya went in and cleansed herself from idolatry, and she cleansed the Nile from idolatry, so then she was able to draw Moshe Rabbeinu into the water, because it was already transformed and elevated. And matter of fact, that's why Basya, her name is Bas Yudke. She's the daughter of the infinite part of Hashem. Once she did tshuva and once she transformed herself and she transformed the idolatry. So in other words, like this, the greatest light comes from where? From darkness that's transformed. So in our case, when the Nile was transformed from a place of idolatry to a place of kedusha, a place of holiness, so that's why it was able to be transformed into the real Alma Dizgasya, and therefore Moshe Rabbeinu got his name as Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's the name we know him from, specifically an idolatry that was transformed. And the greatest Alma Dizgasya, the greatest concealment of the powerful energy was actually found specifically in the Nile after the transformation that took place through Basya. So based on this, the Rebbe answers the question very simple. Why is this Shabbos called Shabbat Hagadol? Because the Egyptians, the firstborn of the Egyptians, which represented the strongest power of negative energy, when the strongest power of negative energy fought for the Jewish people to leave Egypt, that is a huge miracle. And that's why it's called Shabbos Hagadol, for the great, powerful negative energy that was against God and godliness, was fighting for Hashem and fighting for the Jewish people to leave. And that's why it's called Shabbos Hagadol. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to the memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib, Shlomo ben Yosef, and Rachel bas Lipa. May their souls be elevated by the Torah we're studying in their memory. Have a great and blessed week. For more information, please see our website, Chabad, swf.org, and have a happy and kosher Pesach.